Jimmy Garcia. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Good.
I'm
I'm
doing
glad
really
to have
good.
you on. Been
Yeah,
looking
thank you
forward to this.
for having me.
Absolutely. Let me give you a brief introduction here for the audience so that they get a feel for who you are and what you do. You are the founder of Mean Mug Pistons, Texas based creative venture where you transform reclaim engine pistons into hand carved sculptures known as Mean Mugs. You're an ebook author and mentor. You published your first ebook titled Tenacity, A Blue Collar Man's Road to Healing, sharing lessons from addiction, fatherhood, and recovery. You've got a massive social media following and global reach where you've channeled your passion into art and now ship your work worldwide with dedicated following on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And inspiration through long term sobriety. You celebrated 15 years of being sober since August 22nd of 2009, turning pain into purpose and using your story to uplift those in recovery. Amazing transformation. And congratulations on the 15 years, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's been it's been an amazing experience. I will say that.
I can imagine. I can imagine it's been a journey for sure. So, really, the only structured guy question that I have is the first one, and that is where were you born and what was life like as a kid for Jimmy?
Man, so I was so I was actually born in San Marcos, Texas, because it only cost my dad $150 for me to be born. But
Okay.
I was raised in Austin, Texas, which is so San Marcos is about 20 minutes south of Austin.
Okay.
So when my mom was pregnant, my dad and them had to drive 20 minutes south to the small little hospital that's no longer there so I can be born. And it only cost my dad, I think it was like $175 for me to be born back in 1979. So yeah, so I always got to say that little story because it's not never born here or raised here because I was born in San Marcos, but I was raised in Austin, Texas.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
And then growing up, I'm a grade A trailer park kid. I grew up in a trailer park. Through all the, and there's nothing wrong with it. I lived there for I think for 20 years. My first 20 years of life, I stayed in an actual trailer park, and it was one of them trailer parks to where it's not your traditional ones now. It was where people would buy, the single wides, and then they would just add on to it to
Yeah.
make it into like this humongous house. So like starting off, it was a single wide with 2 bedrooms, but by the time I left in 1999, I think my dad we ended up putting. I think it ended up being like a 5 bedroom like house
Okay.
where the single wide was in the middle and everything else was around it and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it wasn't your traditional, mobile home or trailer
Right.
park where it was at. So, man, but growing up, it was amazing. I'm a what they call a exennial, which is I'm not a Gen X, but I'm not a millennial. Like I'm in between those two. And I was born in '79. You know, I was a kid in the '80s and a teenager in the '90s. And man, it was I catch myself being homesick for a time that I can't go back to. Especially during that time. It's just it was an amazing experience. Um, to where I don't think nobody can ever relive it. There isn't nothing that we can do now to relive it, but we can only share the experiences that we learn from them to our kids and stuff. You know, growing up was amazing too because my dad is a self-employed also. He is a small business owner. He has a body shop, a automotive collision shop that he's been in business since 1974. All my summers, spring breaks, Thanksgiving breaks, anytime I wanted to see my dad or be around him, I had to be at the shop because he was the boss, the mechanic, the painter, the everything until he was able to get employees and stuff. But so yeah, man, I'm pretty much a typical. My dad was also an old school hippie, so
Okay.
he grew up in the whole like beginning of Hell's Angels, Harley Davidsons, and my dad. I remember growing up around Harleys all my early life. Like my dad's friends would come over on their bikes and going to the shops. I was your typical 80s, 90s blue collar, hot rod, hippie kid. My dad had hair down to his waist all the way up until I was like, I think 24, 25. My dad had the John Lennon glasses or the Ozzy Osbourne little round glasses. And,
Okay.
so that's what I grew up in. I grew up in traditional blue collar, small business, hot rod life. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I was 8 years old when I figured out that my dads weren't mechanics or bodymen. That's when I realized that there was other jobs that other men were doing that weren't working on cars or motorcycles. And
Right.
I remember it being like it was yesterday growing up, and I went to a friend's house, and then we're eating dinner, and I asked one of his dad what he did for a living, and he was a superintendent for a school, and
Okay.
it kind of like threw me back. I was like, a superintendent? Like I didn't know what that was, and he kind of explained to it, and I was like, so you don't work on cars? He was like, no. It was like that. I don't do that for a living. So I was like 8, 9 years old when I was like, I guess there's other jobs other than blue collar guys.
Yeah. No, I can relate. My dad was a mechanic up until I was 15, and worked in gas stations the entire time. And then at 15, he ended up having to have lung surgery because of all the brake dust and all that type of stuff, asbestos. And he smoked as well. Ended up having to have lung surgery, cracked his lungs open, rib cage open rather, and operated. And then 9 months later, the other lung did the exact same thing, and had to have surgery on that. So he had two back-to-back lung surgeries, and at that point he had to switch uh, kind of jobs. And
Yeah.
fortunately, he knew one of the local Napa owners, so he went to work for them doing parts delivery, and it was kind of an easy transition just because of ordering all the parts for all those years, and then
Yeah.
now just delivering him. It was an easy scenario of him being able to go in and know exactly what the product was and just deliver it to everybody else around the area that had a shop or gas station or any of that type of stuff. So I grew up similarly around the automotive component of things. What was school like for you in elementary school? Were you one of the kids that was pretty engaged, or were you one of those creative kids that was kind of quiet, off to the corner, didn't want to draw a lot of attention?
No, man, I was the life of the group. Like
Okay.
I was the kid that was always involved. I just always wanted to be involved and stuff. And it wasn't until years later, when I mean years later, it wasn't until my youngest son was um, being diagnosed for ADHD that I found out that I was ADHD. And
Yeah.
when I finally figured that out, my whole prior life started making sense to me of why I was and why I acted a certain way and stuff. But in school, I went to I went to private school all my life
Okay.
because so my dad and my mom were old hippies. It was crazy because they we're Native Americans. Like
Okay.
we're known as growing up we're classified as Hispanics until later on in life we can get to later that we discovered that we were actual we're actually native. Like we're actually not even part of the Mexican culture. We're part of native culture, but that can be another conversation. So
Which
growing
tribe?
up, actually I'm in the process of trying to figure it out, but it's looking
Okay.
like we're the part of the Lipion Apaches.
Okay, gotcha.
So growing up, we grew up in the Hispanic culture and stuff, which was like really Catholics and real Catholicism. But my it's a crazy story. I'm glad we got time. But it goes with my childhood.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my parents were excommunicated from the Catholic Church.
Okay.
So my mom was the one that got saved, or accepted Jesus Christ in her heart first, and then my dad came in later, decided to do the same thing. But so growing up, we grew up in a radical Pentecostal household. Like
Okay.
we're the ones that you can find on YouTube, where the people and ladies running up and down the aisles, where the whole church is completely going nuts, dancing, the whole tambourines, the speaking in tongues, people. That was
Yep.
us. That's
Yep.
what I grew up in. For I think we attended that church for about 16, almost 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, about 20 years. I was about 16. My parents were there 20 years. I was there 16 years because of how I was born.
Yeah.
So when it was time for me to go to school, my parents were already saved and in the church, and they didn't want me to go to public school because of whatever their public school beliefs in or whatever. So I went to
Yeah.
private school. So I went to private school all my life except for third grade. Third grade was the
Okay.
one and only time that my mom, I still don't know why today she put me in public school, but I went to public school in third grade. But yeah, man, growing up, I was in private school all my life. I will say that I was one that I couldn't sit still. And then in the school that we were in, it was like a self-paced kind of school, to where
Yep.
we had our own desk, and we had dividers that separate us from other students. So it'd
Yeah.
be like me sitting here, and then I had a divider that was about from the wall. It was about 3 feet from the wall back. So
Yeah.
there was I say about a foot and a half where I wasn't allowed to. If I would sit back in my chair, I couldn't see the other person next to me. So
Right.
it was like small cubicles, like in mobile homes, like in a trailer home. That was our school. It was a
Yeah.
small little private school that was run also by the church. Like it was a church. There was a church during like the day, or a church at night, and a private school during the day. And so it was one of them where all like the church members can send their kids to the school. So in other words, it was one of them churches that kept everybody together.
Yep.
It's in other words, it was a cult. I would say that.
Okay.
If you want me to put it in a term that everybody will understand, it was a
Yeah.
cult, which means everybody stayed with each other, went to the same church, went to the same school. We all celebrated birthdays together. We would go out to eat together, all that stuff. And the only other time that we would do other things, if our parents would put us in like recreational sports.
Okay.
And my mom was probably one of the only ones, I would say, that kept me involved in they would call it the secular world,
Okay.
which
Got it.
was, there was the Christian world and there was a secular world, and anything outside of the church was considered secular. And
Right.
so my mom made sure that I still had involvement of secular world, so that way when I got older, I was able to, I guess blend in with people. I guess I want to say. Uh, so
Yeah.
growing up was interesting. I would say that, like I said, it wasn't until at first I was 8 or 9 when I figured guys weren't blue collar guys, and then I think uh, I think like 12 when my mom actually started allowing me to go to other churches and seeing what other churches involved and stuff. So I can thank my mom for that, because I guess she figured out who I was and figured that I just couldn't be in one group. that she
Yeah.
knew I needed to be around. I was a people person. Like I will say that I'm one of them guys that I can go into a room of 100 strangers and I'll come out with 99 friends. Like
Right.
still
For sure.
today, I'm like that. Like it's just how I am. It's how I was. So it was interesting, you know, growing up in a really secular, I mean, really radical Christian home, and then having to be able to be involved in secular stuff was pretty interesting.
Was the
But you know,
I was going to say, was the education component, did you have to study in little booklets?
yes,
Okay. And did you have to complete 9 of
yes, we
those
did.
to complete a grade? Or 12, rather?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was part of the ACE program.
This is crazy. This is crazy. I went to the exact same kind of school.
That's where they had the little where they had Ace, Pudge, and Bartholomew, all the little characters. Yeah,
Yes.
that's me. Grade A ACE program booklets. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was that. It was, you know, of course we had to memorize. We had a scripture each month we had to memorize. We had chapel every morning,
Yep. Yep.
all that stuff. That was us, man.
Yeah. I went to the same type of school. I went to public school up until third grade, and then from fourth grade on, I went to an ACE school. And my mom parents pulled me out of the public school, which was disappointing for me because I had an opportunity to go the next year to a program called Project Plus, which was where we would go half a day to elementary, but the second half of the day we would go to the high school and be able to do art classes and swim in the pool and play in the gym and all those different things.
Yeah.
So when I had to go to the private school, it was a bit of a shock for me because I had to leave all of the friends that I knew and all that kind of stuff. And our family was Baptist, so probably similar into the terms of the Pentecostal components of things. We
Yeah.
just they didn't do all of the extra music stuff within that. And I had my mom's father was a Southern Baptist minister, so
Oh, okay.
my entire family is all from East Tennessee.
Oh, okay. Y'all Baptist.
Yeah, yeah. So my parents came up here just because my dad being a mechanic, it was just easier to get work up here in Metro Detroit because of the auto industry.
Yeah.
So that's the reason that they came up here. But it's wild that our stories starting off are so similar in a way. When you went to public school for that third grade year, was it a bit of a shock to you compared to what you were experiencing at the private school, or did it feel like a little bit more freedom?
Man, it actually, you know what? Me, by you asking me that question, I felt I belonged somewhere. Like it was
Yeah,
the first time I actually felt like accepted. Like but I felt like I belonged somewhere. It's like I felt like that. Like in other words, I felt that was my tribe. Just because there were so many of boys like me. Like
yeah,
there was other kids that were like had this, you know, they were like me, like had the same. I don't know how to put it. Not the same problems, but there was more of us that I got along with
yeah,
compared to when I was in the public school. I was the only one that liked me. There wasn't another kid like me that far as like what I like, my interests and my love for artwork and doodling and all that other stuff. Like I was the only one. So I at an early age I knew I was different. And so I
yeah,
just accepted it. Like that was just me. Until when I went to third grade and I went there and I was like, I guess you could say a kid in the candy store. I was like, man, I love this. It feels great. I felt freedom, this, not whatever. But my parents were so stuck on the religious part of the church, what they believed. They don't believe this now that they've changed. But at the time, they felt that public schools were corrupting young kids' mind with their teaching and stuff.
Yeah,
And so, being in third grade, 8, 9 years old, I had no decision. I had to just go wherever my parents told me to go
for
and
sure.
stuff. And so, but I think for me, it wasn't that bad because even though I was still going to the public school in third grade, we were still attending the church. So I was still involved with my friends from the church and the elementary school. That there was never really a separation other than school
Yeah, for
and
sure.
stuff. Because I can say like I never went to like any birthday parties. Like I never really got to do anything with my friends in public school. Some of them lived in the same neighborhood as me, and that's the only time I saw them. But far as like going to their house, into their houses, or birthday parties, or stuff like that, I never really did it because we were always being involved with the church.
Um, I know you have a sister, Monica, which is the way we got connected.
Yeah,
Did you have any other siblings at all?
yeah. So I'm the baby of four.
Okay,
So I have an older sister named Maria, then I got a brother named Johnny, and then there's Monica, and then there's me.
okay, gotcha. And what was it like having them being older than you and being the baby, but also to going to these two different environments of school at that point in time?
Man, it was when I look back on it now, it was there's a lot of stuff that trauma blocked. Like
Okay,
I've been doing a lot of healing from actual childhood, just because me and Monica are about 4 years apart, and
okay.
then my brother we're 10 years apart, and then my older sister we're 13 years apart.
Oh
So,
wow. Okay.
by the time when I was in like third grade, yeah, like third grade, fourth grade, the actual ages and grades where I would start understanding feelings and know what's going on. Um, uh, there was a lot of family issues that were going on in our family's life that I know my mom did her best for me not to be around it.
Okay.
It was so I can say I didn't really have my older brother sister there. Like they weren't
Gotcha.
really involved. They weren't really involved in my life as most big brothers and sisters would. Because
Yeah.
so when I was 8 years old, my brother got married in '88, and so he wasn't really mentally or physically available because it was him and his wife.
Yep.
And then my older sister was already out and about doing her own thing. Um, and then me and Monica's relationship really bonded when I became like a teenager and stuff. So
Okay.
there's a mental trauma block between from the time I was little to about I think 12 or 13 and stuff
Okay.
that I can see this that I can't really remember a lot of things just because there's so much going on that like they say that when you have real bad trauma, it just blocks the memory of it and stuff. So
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
but I do remember it was always fun and laughter. Like it was
Okay.
always, with my brothers and siblings. What I do remember from them, it was we always had a good time. I never had I can't sit here and tell you that I had a like a sad memory or sad time with them because it was just always fun. I was the baby brother, and to be around my older siblings, when they did come around, it was fun. Like anytime I got a chance to be around them, I just wanted to make the best of it, I guess.
Yeah.
So I started taking on, I guess, doing whatever I could to make sure they were happy with me. Like I never wanted them to be upset with me. And at a young age, you don't know that's hurting you until you get to an adult, and then you start noticing that was just a trauma fix, like trying to help you fix. In other words, that's a trauma healing, but not healing the proper way and stuff.
Right. Exactly.
It was blurry, but things started changing when Monica went to Pensacola Christian College. When she started going to college, then I was able to have my parents all to myself for like, I don't know, 5, 6 years.
Okay.
Because Monica went to school when I turned 12, 12 turning 13. And so I didn't leave the house until I was 19.
Yeah.
So I had my parents all to myself. So that was a blessing for me because it allowed me to really get some more relationship with my mom. Because me and
Yeah.
my mom are close.
Okay.
Growing
And
up, I'm sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
I said, no, me and my mom got really close from the time I was 12 until I was 19 until I left the house.
Okay.
Like, if, my dad was there. Like, I love my dad. He did what he could, but, my dad being a old school, self-employed blue collar, it was all about work. Like,
Yeah.
work was number one. God was first, and then work was second, because if we didn't have money, we couldn't feed, we couldn't eat. So he was always making sure that he was always working
Right.
stuff. So, like I said, the only time I got to see my dad was on Sundays. Went to church, or at nighttime he came home, but that was just a few hours because he would come home like at 6, 7, eat dinner, and then he'll go in the room or watch TV, and that was it. Or when we would go on vacations, but even then that was rare because my dad never went because he had to come back to the shop and work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I grew up with a dad that was a nonstop hustler. He still is. My dad's 75 years old, still does 10-hour days.
Wow. That's wild. Yeah. My dad, he worked for Napa for 32 years. And when he stopped working, it was just because of his lungs were getting bad again. And at the time that he quit working, he was 82. So
Oh
he
wow.
had worked well past the retirement age.
Yeah.
How about your grandparents? Were your grandparents around when you were a kid?
No, my I only had grandmothers. Both of my grandpas, my mom's dad died when my mom was, I think she said 16 or 17.
Yeah.
So my parents got married in 1966, and then they had my sister, I think, in 68. So he died. I think he died in 68 or 69 is when he died. And then, of course, I wasn't. I think I wasn't born until 79. And then my dad's dad died when he was 5 years old.
Okay.
And my dad was born in 1949, so he died like in 50, 51, 50, 51, 52, like 53, 52.
Yeah.
So I never got to know my grandpas. Um,
Okay.
my grandmothers, they were there, but they were there. I will put it that way.
Gotcha.
We only saw them come holidays or when. So my mom's mom, I only saw her when my mom would go visit her or on holidays because we were all the brothers and sisters will go visit. Um, and my mom's one of 12.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, yeah, well, was one of 12. There's only four left out of the
Yeah.
12.
Yeah.
So so holidays was awesome because we got to hang out with all our cousins and uncles, and then that was when I really saw my grandma. But I never had a personal relationship with my grandma. Like I don't I can't say that I knew her.
Got it.
I just knew that she was my grandma, and when I did get to see her at the time, I loved her because she did show me love when I did come around, but there was never a personal relationship with with my mom's mom. Now my dad's mom, I got a somewhat of a good relationship when my dad decided to move her into his shop and make part of his shop into a two-bedroom apartment. Uh,
Okay.
it got to the point to where I think there was some like a between my dad and his brothers. They got to a point to where my grandma needed to be in a house or somebody needed to watch her because she just
Yeah.
got to the point to where she just couldn't be alone. Like she couldn't live far out alone without nobody watching her.
Yeah.
So it got to the point to where my dad was like, if we're not going to agree on all pitching in for an apartment, I'll just build her one by my shop. So that way I'm with her every day So my dad did that. My dad did it, and then my grandma. I think my grandma lived with my dad. I think for like 20 years at the
Okay.
shop. So he built a little two bedroom apartment in his shop, and so like I said, every time I went to my dad's shop was a lot. I would say, I would go to my dad's shop about 4 times a week for something, whether it was to go, I was with my mom to go get money from my dad or go visit my dad real quick or something. So every time I went to see my dad, I had to go see my grandma because my dad told me, he was like, that's out of respect. You gotta go see your grandma because you never know how long she's gonna live. That's what my dad would
Right.
say. Like, and she likes
Yeah.
seeing you. So I had a little bit more of a personal relationship with my dad's mom just because I was able to see her more and stuff. But it was a little hard sometimes because the language barrier was a little tough. Because even though she could speak English, she preferred to speak Spanish,
Okay.
and I don't know Spanish. That was the one thing my parents never taught me is Spanish.
Okay.
The reason why is because when I think I was about 3 or 4, my mom had a dream of opening up her own taco stand,
Okay.
and so my dad made it happen. My dad got her all the stuff, and my mom had a very successful taco shop. It was called Andrea's Tacos, and still today, my parents say it was booming. Like my mom's food was delicious. They always had customers, and so during that time that she was doing her business, and my dad was doing his business, my mom had to put me in daycare, and
Okay.
I had to stay with the babysitter. Well, the daycare and babysitter don't speak Spanish, so they weren't talking to me in Spanish like the way my parents were talking to my brother and sister.
Gotcha.
So the dialogue, me growing up, was straight English. So I was like 5 years old, turning 6, I believe, when my mom decided that she didn't want other people to raise her last baby. So my mom gave up on her dream of having a taco stand to raise me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty deep when I talk about it, think about it. Like my mom gave that up because she didn't want nobody else to raise me. She wanted to give me the actual full attention. And I was her baby, and then two was because she wanted that because she didn't have that with her mom because her
Right.
mom abandoned them when they were little
Oh, wow. Okay.
and stuff. So
Okay.
I wouldn't say abandoned them, but pretty much let her dad raise them.
Yeah. Wasn't,
My mom's mom wasn't really in the picture of raising them.
yeah,
It was
wasn't,
more the dad. Yeah, yeah. So when I was 6 years old, my mom decided to give up her taco shop, sell everything, and just become a stay-at-home mom. And I think my mom stayed home until I think my mom didn't work until I left, which was I think 21, 22 years old.
okay.
She didn't work
Okay.
and stuff. So,
Gotcha.
so anyways, getting back to my grandma and stuff, it was just I had a better relationship with her and stuff just because I was able to see her more and I actually have a few I have more pictures with her and stuff. It was just I don't know. I felt more attached or more connected with my dad's mom than I did my mom's mom. I just
Yeah.
felt there was more of a spiritual connection with my dad's mom
Sure.
and stuff. Because my dad's mom she was known as grandma, and my mom's mom was known as mom. Everybody called her mom.
Okay.
And so but my dad's mom, her name was Juanita. So she's a typical little Hispanic lady, man, and stuff. But she was like 5 foot, loved garage sales. That's all she did and stuff. So
Nice.
it was fun having her around. Come summer times and stuff. It was always, she made my dad breakfast every morning. Like my dad had his mom breakfast and all the way up until the day she died. Like or until my dad had to put her in the home,
Right.
which was 80. I think it was 80. I think she was 85 when my dad finally had to put her in the home. So for like
Okay.
20, I think for like 20, 25 years, she lived at my dad's shop. So for like 25 years, every day my dad was eating his, still had his mom's food.
Yeah.
And what was even more amazing is that my dad is one of seven. So he has two sisters, and the rest are all brothers. So
Wow.
all his brothers worked with him. So
Okay.
I got double blessed, not only to be with my dad, but I was able to be with my brother and to be with all my dad's brothers, all my uncles.
Yeah.
So I grew up with all of them. And then, of course, they had kids, and so all their kids were also involved in the body shop. So come summertime, man, it was like me, all my cousins, my guy cousins, and all the uncles and my dad, all at the
Yeah.
shop. It was just one big testosterone fed like body shop, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then of course, you have the sometimes we get the hot rods and the Harley Davidson guys there, and and then my dad's shop happened to be at the time in like this farmland where there was just like woods behind it. So at lunchtime we'll go in the back and shoot all these guns and machine guns and stuff. So it was every kid's hot rod dream, blue collar shop to be at
Yeah.
stuff. So it was an amazing upbringing. It was interesting, I would say.
For sure. How was once you went back to the private school after third grade and going back into that environment where you didn't feel like you really fit in? You felt more like the outsider in that environment versus the third grade, the year of post school. Did that affect your mentality in terms of how you interacted with everybody else as well? Did it cause you
Yes,
to be a little bit more closed off?
I would say yes because now when I went to public school and then when I went back into that private school, it began. When I look back now, I can tell you this now because I've done a lot of healing and figured out what was going on.
Yeah.
It allowed me to see that there was more to the world other than just the Pentecostal community,
Yeah.
the hardcore. This is where we got to stay. This is our bubble. If it's not within the church or the Pentecostal community, it's worldly. It's not of the Christ world, and it allowed me to see that there are other people out there, like there are other kids out there that were like me, or their parents did go to church or whatever. But it allowed me to see that it allowed the thought of there's more to there's more to this church than what they're saying.
Yeah.
Which started that there's more to God than what they're saying. Like, as far as there's more to Him, other than just
Yes.
this one little cycle, one little ball of that's it. And at in third grade, going into fourth grade and into back to private school, that was when my mind was really open. It started to open. Like that's when I started asking questions. I
Okay.
started asking my parents questions. Why is it like this? Why do we got to keep going here? Why can't I go? Why can't I go back to public school if everything we talk about in church is about being a witness for God and being a fisherman of men? Why can't I be back in public school and be a follower and a disciple? All the good questions that were good little questions, but
Yeah.
you know, growing up in that time in Pentecostal states, it was straight up yes or no. It was no
Right.
because I said so,
Yeah.
flat out. No explanations, no why, no nothing. Is because I said so,
Yep.
and that was the whole life of me growing up until I was 16 when my parents decided to leave that church.
Okay.
So from the early stage to then, it was straight up yes, no, because I said so. It's of the devil. It was hardcore, man. Like I think you're on the Baptist side, but I've had friends now that were Baptist, Southern Baptists, and they even said it. Like we had the same thing. It was straight up
Yeah.
yes, no, you can't do it because the Bible says if you do this, you're gonna go to hell, and it was all of that, and it was. I was like, okay, so in other words, that is when everything started. I had to just hold everything in, bury it,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
or like it wasn't until when I got older in my healing stages of sobriety was when I realized that it is true that our bodies are temples. And when growing up as men, we, if not trained or taught, like growing the way I grew up, my temple started becoming tuned because I started burying the feelings and the questions and the emotions and how I was feeling. I just started burying it. And then by the time I became 20, 25, when I started getting into like 20, 21, 22, when I started getting into drugs and alcohol, it was just everything. My body became a tomb. It was
Right.
just one big tomb of all these emotions and feelings and not having any explanations other than no, because I said.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. When you mentioned earlier too that you were into drawing and stuff like that as a kid, did you have a sense that you were more sensitive than everybody else that was around you?
Yes.
Okay.
I knew I had I would, now that I'm older, you'll probably
Well,
hear me say that a lot now that I'm older and I recognize it. I was more in tune with my inner self to understand what was going on with other people.
yeah.
And there are certain things that I felt sensitive about, things like I was able to read up, I was able to feel their energy and understand it before I even knew what energy and understanding was.
Yes.
Like I like now I don't see humans, I see energy, and I can read it. Like I can feel your energy,
Yeah.
and I know what you're giving off. Like I know your aura, and just because I've taught myself and I've learned how to just be in tune with my inner self to go off energy. And if your energy is off, like I don't want nothing to do with it. But I'm
Yeah.
sensitive to it, and I learned that now that when I was younger, I was always the one that was sensitive to certain things. Like I was the one that like understood it. But what was hard is that there was nobody that could decipher what I was feeling,
Yes.
because if it wasn't within the actual bubble of the scripture of the religion of the doctrine of it, it wasn't. It was of the devil.
Right. Yeah,
It's
for
not.
sure. It, again, relating almost like a mirror to you because that's kind of the same scenario that I was in. I was able to sense things before anybody else could sense it. I could feel different people's emotions and energy a lot quicker. I was highly sensitive to loud noises. So if somebody was, doing that same thing of telling you no because I said so, like I would be that one that would just start crying because it was like, but you're just answering it as a flat out this is it, like you're
Yeah.
not giving me any kind of option scenario or letting me explain any further. So I can completely relate to that, and that's kind of why I asked that question. Was I was already sensing that was the possibility. That's how you were growing up.
Yeah, and then and then it got to the point to where I just I didn't want to ask anything anymore. Like
Yeah.
I got to, why are you always quiet? I'm like, well, I'm just like, because like I said, like now it's just because my at the time my energy source just didn't want to absorb any of yours, so it was just shutting off. So I
Yeah.
got quiet, and so then it got to the point to where uh, if I felt that you liked me, or I felt that you liked my energy, that's when I knew that I felt that I was at peace. Like growing up, what I thought was peaceful, what I thought was peace was others people's affection towards me.
Yeah.
It's because I knew that I couldn't speak to you about things because it wasn't never going to get, uh, discussed about it or told me. But I knew that if I acted or made you feel a certain way, or
Right.
if I brought your energy up, it would make me feel peaceful.
Yeah.
And so then that's where I just got for so long, was that's how I was. But man, when I would come home by myself, when I would be by myself, that was when everything would hit. Like the drain of having to deal with all that would just drain me and
Yeah.
stuff. And at a young age, that is when I would start doodling and just started wanting to keep myself busy and always doing something. And growing up, I was always outside, whether I was riding my motorcycle, riding my bike, or just outside in general. Like I had to do something because if I wasn't, I would just fall asleep.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what, I'll just go to sleep because that's what I knew that would keep my mind busy if I was asleep.
Right. How about athletics? Were there any athletics at the school that you went to that you participated in or outside of school?
So yeah, we only had basketball. That's all we had.
Okay. All right.
But basketball didn't come into play until I was, uh, I say, 12 years old, because my mom was raised on boxing and baseball, and
Oh, wow.
my dad was all football.
Okay.
So my dad got his football player from my brother. My brother played football, and then my mom told my dad that I don't want him doing boxing because I don't want him to be like end up like my uncles and how their face looked and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
my mom wanted the baseball player. So I played baseball from the time I was like 4 years old until I was 12, because back then the recreational leagues only went up to 13 years old in fall ball, and then
Yeah.
it went into select ball, because there
Yeah.
wasn't any baseball during junior high, and then from junior high you went into high school. I was at private school, and my dad wasn't going to pay for me to be in a select baseball because he just wasn't going to pay it, because that is what the rich folks did, not us.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
so I know my mom was a little upset because she wanted the baseball player. And Rich, I was good, bro. I ain't gonna lie, I'm not saying it because I was saying it, but I was good at 12 years old. Like I already had like the local high school coaches scouting me because they were wanting me to know what the junior high I was going to, wanted to know if I was going to go to high school because they saw me in the rec leagues, now whatever. And
Yep.
my parents didn't want to put me in public school, and so my baseball career ended and when I was 12, and then that is when I just got more involved in basketball because
Right.
our private school had it, and that was the only sport they had. So I was like, well, you know what? I'll just put all my love and whatever into basketball, and I got good. I mean, I got really good in basketball, but it got
Okay.
to the same, not to the same thing, but it was in private school. But when I changed schools because some family issues happened on my
Okay.
freshman year. Like,
Gotcha.
but when I changed schools, I went to a different high school. My high school was a different private school from the beginning, because
Gotcha.
we had some serious family issues that got involved with the church and my family, and it ended up like uh our parents had to leave the church because like the head
Okay.
pastor and the family, and it was one big like one big mess up that
Gotcha.
pretty much just broke the it was the time that it just broke the straw that broke the camel's back. Like,
Got it.
anyways, so my parents ended up leaving the church after 20 years. I went to a different private school again, which was a private school, but it was a high school. But there was different. That wasn't a ACU program. It was some other like Christian curriculum booklets
Gotcha. Okay.
and stuff. So I played basketball to there, and then I played basketball freshman, sophomore, and then coming my junior year, the private school board decided to revamp the school, and they ended up firing all these teachers and coaches and stuff, and I guess wanted to go a different route. Well, that route ended up closing the school, but so here I was going in my junior year, and all my basketball mates left. They all went to their own high schools in their own little town.
Right.
But so then here I was, all this talent stuck in a school that didn't even have a basketball team anymore. So I go to my parents, and then my dad's like, "Well, try to go to." He goes, "Well, if you want to get into a high school, then you got to figure out how to get in it." And so I was like, "Okay." So then I tried to get into this one high school, and then they were like, you can come in, but you're going to be starting back as a freshman because your credits don't transfer over.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so here I was, 17, turning 18 as a junior because my birthday's in September, and then I got held back in fourth grade when I went back. Yeah, so I got held back in fourth grade. So I was already behind because my birthday. I got held back in fourth grade or third grade at public school. I got held back, and so here I was, a junior, 17, turning 18. So I was going to be a senior at 19. So if I was going to go back to this high school, they were wanting me to start me back as a freshman.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I can't do that. So I continued going to this private school for a little bit. And in that time, one of my best friends at the time was going to this other high school that was about 45 minutes from where I was living at.
Okay.
And I would play on Sundays with him. And his actual coach, the basketball coach, liked me enough and wanted to know if I wanted to go to their school.
Okay.
So in other words, he did the late work and was going to be able to get me into the high school, and they were going to help me get me to where my credits were going to match by the time I was a senior in high school.
Cool.
So in other words, they were going to accept me because of my talent in basketball and wanted me to be on their varsity team.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was talk to my parents and get them to sign off that on the transfer and all the paperwork.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, my sister Monica was going to Pensacola Christian College.
Yeah.
And my dad was flipping the bill for that. My dad was
Okay.
paying that every month.
Got you.
And so I come back for the meeting with the coach, tell my parents. The next day, my dad's like,
Clipped out, Jimmy. If you can hear me. All right, go ahead.
sorry. Getting back to the story, I come back, I tell my dad what they're offering and stuff. He pretty much just tells me he can't afford it because he has to pay for my sister's college. So I either have to just continue going to the high school or just continue going to the high school. So I was like, there goes my basketball career. That ended that because there was no other options for me
Yeah.
to do it. So sports, that was one of my main sports that I got into, was that when I was younger and stuff.
Right.
But in between the basketball and that, I still love doing art. Like my type of art was like the old hot rod cartoon magazines. I don't know if you with them.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I grew up on, and that's what my style that I loved doing was wanting to draw stuff like that, and so I would just doodle and draw all kinds of things. Growing up, in between the actual, me playing sports. So I was playing basketball when I was growing up, and if I wasn't playing basketball, I was drawing.
Okay.
Or just drawing or making stuff with my Legos. That was pretty much it.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm finding interesting about your storyline is the fact that you started out, you were playing baseball, you got good at it, you felt comfortable with it, and it was a thing that was you're excelling at. But just because of the situation, you got told you're going to have to stop playing baseball and you're going to have to go into this other area where you're going to have to do something else. So you pick up basketball just because that's the only option.
Yeah.
Get good at that, starting to get noticed for that ability, and then things change again for you. So it's like there's these roadblocks that keep getting put in the way of you being able to excel at certain points in your childhood, just because of other external circumstances, things that you can't even control.
Yeah. I that roadblock was I'd say it was the last one that affected me in my early age, because I had one prior to that. It was actual artwork. So I was like 14, like 14 or 15, and my sister was probably already like I think a sophomore or a junior in college at Pensacola Christian College.
Yeah.
And there was this actual like art contest. Like there was like a pamphlet that I can't remember where I got it. Oh, I remember now. So I used to watch DBS, like the
Yeah.
Learning Channel,
Yeah.
and I was watching it one time, and I kept seeing a commercial about like an art contest for an art school, and if you win, you can become one of the artists for the art school. Like you can pretty much get paid to be an
Yeah.
artist. And so I was like, all right. So then I was like, well, you know what? Next time the commercial comes, I'm gonna write down the information, because there was you couldn't pause the TV back in the 90s, so it was pretty much you had to be a fast reader. If not, well, hopefully it comes up the next commercial. And sure enough, like I already saw it twice, so I knew it was going to be a repeating commercial, because I was watching an actual art show on the actual PBS.
Okay.
So sure enough, I wrote down the information, the address, this, that, whatever, and it happened to be I think it was like Art of Institute in Illinois. I think that's what it was called.
All right.
So I wrote to them. It was basically, I think you paid like $2, and you send in $2, and they'll send you an actual art packet back, and you actually draw what they want you to draw, and then you mail it back to them, and then they grade it, and then I guess if you grade high, you would get in contact with one of the representatives.
Okay.
So I did all that. I sent it. I remember I had the $2. My mom took me to HEB, a little grocery store. I got me a $2 money order, mailed it off. Had to wait 4 to 6 weeks to get a response. Got a response after 6 weeks. I think by the 8th week, I got the pamphlet in, and then I think it took me like a week and a half to finally do every single art piece that I did, and then of course pack it up and then mail it off, and then it was another 4 to 6 weeks before I
Right.
heard anything, and then I think it was like month 4. I get a phone call, and my mom gets a phone call, and then my mom's like, "Hey, somebody's on the phone for you. It's some man." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah." So he talks to me. He's talking to me about this art contest, and he's asked if I was in. I was like, "Yeah, that was me. This and that, whatever." And he was like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna be in town because I want to talk to you about uh, possibly you becoming one of our artists because
Okay.
because you won the contest."
All right.
And I was like, "What?" And like, yeah. So then I put my mom back on the phone, and then him and my mom scheduled an appointment so that way, both parents could be there. And then
Right.
sure enough, I remember the day of, my dad comes home early from work. I think that's why it was so special to me, because I remember
Yeah.
my dad he left work like
Right.
early so that way he could be in the meeting with me and
Yeah.
my mom and stuff, because I think my other two, my dad didn't want another man in the house without him being there. And it was
Sure.
just me and my mom. So of course, anyway, he shows up. My dad's, I need you to go put your Sunday's best on, because every Sunday morning we have to dress nice, whatever's in that. So I did, put my Sunday's best on. The guy shows up. We're in the kitchen table. We're talking. And then he brings out my actual artwork. And he tells my parents that your son has a talent that most kids don't have at his age. And he's really good. And then they actually show me, they show my artwork, the artwork contest. Like I had to draw like a bird and like a bunch of other different objects. And then
Yeah.
they show the school, then they show like the correct way to draw it. And my stuff was minor corrections compared to the professionals. And they were like, "Your son has it. He'll just take a few little art classes to him get there, and your son will be able to be one of our main artists, and we'll pay him. He'll be. Well, in other words, we'll hire him on, and he'll be one of our artists, and we'll pay him. But he has to go to the school in order to do it. And I
Yeah.
think the school was like, I think it was like $5,000. I think it was like $5,000. But so it was like, I think like 200 $200 a month or something like that. And So they told my parents that, and they talked, whatever. And then, sure enough, the next day, my dad sits me down at the dinner table and was like, we're not going to be able to do it because I got to pay for your sister's college. So you're not going to be able to go to your art school. But then he was like, but mama's going to find some art classes that you can attend, like here locally. But, those art classes weren't for me. They weren't something that I wanted for my talent. So
Right.
that was my first dose of, or second dose of dreams being killed.
Yes.
Being down. And then
Yep.
years later, the basketball thing happens. And then, of course, I was 18 at the time. All that happened. And I was like, you know what? I guess I'm not gonna live my dreams. I'll just go ahead and drop out of high school and then just started living my life.
Yeah. Yeah. When you did that, dropping out of school, did you just go to work for your dad's shop, or did you go out and try to do something different to where you didn't have to be around that potential of being let down again?
No, I did not. I did not go work with my dad because I fought it. I did not want to be a body man. Like I didn't. I knew my soul, my spirit knew that is not what I wanted to be. Like
Right.
I didn't. I did not want to be a body man. I didn't want to be like my dad. I didn't want to be like my uncles or my brother. Like I knew in my heart and felt that I wanted to be something else. And so I fought it. Like I had other jobs that I did. So I didn't do the body work stuff. I was, I think my first real job, I was a video surveillance security. When I was like
Okay.
16, I watched videos for a little bit, security stuff. And then when I dropped out of high school, I was working at, where was I working at? I think I was working at the YMCA for a few months.
Okay.
And then I got a wild hair up my ass and decided to, you know what? Let me go to this Christian college in Dallas called Christ for the Nations with my buddies to become a music producer. And
Okay.
so while I'm there, I can come back home and get my GED so that way I can do both.
Yeah.
So I tried that, figured out that school wasn't for me. I was hustling. I was hustling side work, making extra money, like doing extra stuff other than my Christian schoolwork.
Yeah.
Like I figured out that these people that come to this Christian school are not, they're not street smart. And so I could get them. And so
Yeah.
that's what I did. I was hustling little things here and there. So that didn't last really long. I came back home when I was like 19. And then I ended up moving to, where was it? Kalamazoo. Yeah, no, I ended up moving to Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
And then from Grand Rapids, Michigan, I moved down to Fort Wayne, Indiana,
Yeah.
with one of my college friends. And then we had a fallout. And then I moved back to Austin for a little bit. Then I moved back to Dallas with my sister for about a year. And then finally, it was just like roadblock after roadblock. It's like stuff just finally kept breaking, kept stopping me. Like
Yeah.
one thing after another, like everything just kept stopping me. And so finally I was like 20 years old. I got in a car wreck in Dallas, Texas. And finally my dad was like, that's it. Like, you got to come home. Like, you got to come home. There's nothing else for you. You have to start living for your life as a man. He was like,
Okay.
you got to come home and get a job, whether it's me or with somebody else. And so I came back home when I was like 19. And then I went back to the YMCA. I worked at the YMCA for about a year and a half. And then I was like 20 years old when my dad was like, you know what? He goes, let me pay you. I'm going to pay you what I pay your uncles in a week. Like, let me show you how much money you can make as a body man if I pay you like your uncles.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, because in between that time, I was still going to my dad's shop, helping him out here and there, but
Sure.
I just didn't want to do it. I just kept helping him out and doodling in the bodywork industry. And my
Yeah.
dad kept telling me, he goes, you have it. you know, you are way more advanced than your brother and your uncles. You know, just come work with me and we'll get it. But I fought it until I was like 19, turning 20, and my dad was like, I'm gonna pay you what I'm gonna pay your uncles, but you got to push the workout. So I was like, all right, bet, dude. I was 19 years old, and I made $2,200 in 1 week.
Wow.
So this was in 1998, 99.
Yeah.
So that was when like
A lot of money.
that was when gas was like 72 cents a gallon, to where when you put $5, you got like almost a full tank.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so that sold me. And that was when I was 20 years, I was 19, turning 20, when I decided, you know what? I'm going to be a body man, because there is nothing else out there for me that I can't, up to my head, I can't get. And so that's when I convinced myself that I'm just going to convince myself that body work, because body work is art. Like auto body collision is a form of art of what we have to do.
Yeah.
So I just conditioned myself and shifted my mind to be like, okay, I'm going to use whatever art I have in my head mentality into learning bodywork.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I just converted everything into being a body man and an automotive painter, painting cars and all that stuff. And that's where my career started. I was 19, turning 20.
Okay. Did you get into doing custom paint, or were you just doing the touch-up finishing paint?
No, when I got into it, I wanted to be a custom painter. Like I wanted to do hot rods, flame jobs,
Yeah.
you know, because like I said, I grew up in, even though we were Hispanics, my dad was heavily involved in the white culture.
Okay.
Like
Yep.
I grew up with, like, even though I went to my elementary was a lot of Hispanics, Mexicans, but my dad made sure that we stayed in the white culture environment.
Okay.
But at a young age, my dad told me, he was like, if you want to make money, you have to stay in the white culture, because
Gotcha.
that is the old money. You want the old money because it lasts longer.
All right.
And he was like, and they're the ones that are going to make your living. They're the ones that are going to provide for everything else because they have money.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, bet. So I became engulfed in the hot rod scene, which was dominant white culture. And so I wanted to become a custom painter. So that's when I started learning how to, you know, do flame jobs and, like, you know, really like roll like glossy paints and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then so I started doing that on Harley Davidson tanks for a little bit.
Okay.
And then I painted a few, you know, old school hot rods and stuff here and there. But, you know, so that was in my early 20s when I did that. And then I got introduced to downtown party scene
Okay.
and stuff. So, but mind you, I come from the actual Pentecostal religion. Like
Yeah.
I come from a heavy background, like Christian stuff. We did change churches when I was like 16,
Yeah.
but even then, it was still, we went from being Pentecostal to being a non-denomination. So we didn't
Gotcha.
have any certain denomination, but so they kind of like freed up for certain things. But leading up to that, there was never a season of teaching me how to be a proper boyfriend or how to have a girlfriend, because I couldn't have a girlfriend. It
Right.
was, no, you ain't gonna have a girlfriend because all you're gonna want to do is have sex, and that's what you want to do. So we're just not gonna allow you. So I never had a girlfriend growing up until I was like 18, 19. So then here I was, full of all these emotions and feelings and everything going on. And all I knew was that I had to treat her godly and treat her like she was a queen. So it was like roses and all this stuff, but never had the understanding of what it really was to be a in a relationship.
Yes.
So then here I come at 20 years old, and of course I was working at the YMCA and other businesses that I was able to introduce to that world.
Yeah.
And so I got engulfed in that, and so then I just went crazy. Like
Went ham on it.
wham, it was like a whole new world. Like, oh my God, it's just
Yeah.
like the movies. There's music, there's these pretty women, there's all this stuff. And then that is when the ADH hustler mentality came in. I was like, well, you know what? If I get in good with certain people, I can do these things. And then that's when the whole drug scene came involved and stuff. But it's a lot. There's a lot of in between to lead up to everything. But yeah, man, that's where I'm at.
And when you got that opportunity to where you saw the world open up at that point in time, essentially is what I'm hearing, is the environment you were raised in. Now you're able to go out into this worldly world where everything is an option, basically. And you start diving into that. And I'm assuming that's the point where you started getting into the drugs and alcohol as well. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. With that, did you realize what that was doing to you in terms of the emotional component of this is making me feel different than what I've been feeling normally. So this is why I like it. This is why I'm attracted to it.
Yeah, man. It literally, how can I put this? It convinced me that was what I was supposed to feel.
Yeah.
Like that was I was supposed to feel. I was supposed to feel alive. I was supposed to feel these emotions. I was supposed to feel what, all that was. Like the female friends that liked me and all this stuff. And because to me it made them feel like they were really seeing me.
Yeah.
Like it made me feel like I felt when I was in third grade in public school.
Yeah.
Like they made me feel like I was like, oh, okay, they're liking me for who I truly am. Like
Yeah.
I can be myself. And of course, when you're in that environment, there's other people that are like you, and it's just like it felt great. Like it felt great. Like I was truly feeling like I belonged. I was becoming somebody. People were actually knowing who I was. And then it was just, I of course I was raised in the town that I grew up in, so I was able to use all of my people I grew up with. And when I got in the 20s, it got to the point to where we all somehow ended up meeting again when we were in our 20s, and then it was just like one big party.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you started doing the extracurricular stuff, did that change your perception of how you were doing your artwork as well?
A little bit, because at the time I wasn't doing any actual like drawing. I was
Okay.
just more engulfed in the actual like
Automotive
work.
side?
Yeah,
Yeah.
motorcycles and paintwork and stuff like that. And then also, and then in the early 2000s, uh like Jesse James and Chip Booth and
Yeah.
all these hot rod people started getting the limelight, started becoming famous. So then it started another fire in me. I was like, we're finally getting noticed
Yeah.
of what I do. And so, but then again, it was also their lifestyle, what they were doing, which was the hot rods and the Harley Davidsons. It was like the motorcycle scene. It was the partying, the drinking, the drugs, like all
Yep.
of that was starting to be like glamorized. And I was
Right.
like, I do that. Like that I can do that. Like I can be
Yeah.
like that. So then that was it allowed me to be like, you know what? I want that lifestyle. And so I just try to engulf myself more into that scene. So I can, at the time I thought I was gonna be somebody. I thought I was gonna be the next person to be on, Monster Garage or on Discovery Channel,
Yeah.
because I was working at my dad's shop, so I had all the ingredients to become it, but I was missing the main ingredient, which was me being sober enough to do it. I was more concentrated on the actual pleasure of it instead of the
Yeah.
actual working of it.
Once you start getting fully engulfed into that lifestyle, what is your parents' reaction at that point in time? and how did that affect you?
They weren't involved. Like it got to. I can say that once. I'll back up a little bit. So when I was 20, 21, 21, I had a season where in my life where I was like, what do I want to do with my life?
Okay.
Like I had like a first little spiritual awakening of like what I wanted to do with my life.
All right.
So there was a time where I was like, you know what, I don't think I want to do this downtown scene no more. I don't want to do it. So I started involving myself more into church, into actual groups that were like my age, like the 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds. Started
Okay.
doing like, like the single meetings at churches, and
Yeah.
got more involved at the actual church that my parents were going to. From I was 16, I was still involved a little bit. So when I was 21, like I was like, you know what, I think I want to change my life. So I went to the season of wanting to change my life to go for God more and be a more of a Christian, and really try to be that young 21-year-old Christian for younger people and stuff. So I tried doing that. I was doing it, and then uh, that's when the actual conscience and the little devil and the angel on the shoulders start speaking to you, and then it was like, well, you still can't go down there and be who you want to be. You just got to be a different person, but you can still be involved. So I was like, all right, cool. So it just got to the point to where I was literally riding the fence the
Yeah.
whole time, just riding,
Yeah.
riding it. Still telling myself, as long as I go to church and I'm still involved and these kind of things, I'll be okay. But then again, I can still do it all over here because I'm making pretty good money, and I'm using the downtown money to pay my tithes in the church. So it was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I convinced myself to be like, okay, I can do both.
Yeah.
As long as I keep the rhythm of doing both, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
But it was like I was 21 years old. I remember the night. I just come home from dropping my friend off, and I just was sitting in my truck, and I was like, I can't do this, because at the time I ended up moving back home with my parents, and uh, and I remember I was sitting in my truck, and my mom, she's one of them parents that she just couldn't sleep until I came home,
Okay.
and so I saw her in the window reading her Bible, like at 5 in the morning, and I was barely coming home, and I saw her sitting in the window, and I just waited for her to, like, I guess, go back, and so yeah, it was about an hour. So she didn't leave her little spot. It was like 6 in the morning. She finally went back in, and it was 6 in the morning, like on a Saturday, when I was like, you know what, I can't do this double life. I have to choose. And so
Right.
I chose to go the other path, to give church up. I
Okay.
want nothing to do with the church scene. I wanted just to be engulfed in the downtown scene, and because in my head and the little person on my shoulder was like, you can become somebody known in this town. You just put more focus into it, and it's not whatever. So I was like, all right, bet. So I did it. I made the choice to go 100% into the downtown scene and trying to make a name for myself. And during that time, man, I didn't see my parents. Like the only time I would see my parents was maybe like on my mom would have a once a month dinner
Okay.
with the siblings, or they'll have a birthday at my mom's house, so we would go over there and eat. But other than that, I didn't see him and stuff. And every Sunday, or sometimes my dad would tell me, he goes, if you come to church, I'll take you to lunch. So there were certain Sundays that I knew I didn't have money to eat until the following like few days. So I would
Yeah.
go to church and see my parents, and we'll go out to eat. But other than that, man, I didn't see my parents. I wasn't involved with them at all from 21, I say, until I was 29 years old, when
Okay.
I finally got clean and sober
Got you.
and stuff.
When that shift took place as well, did that relationship with your sister, because Monica, because she was the one that you were closest to, Did that shift with her as well, that relationship?
Yes, because in 2003, Monica moved to California.
Okay.
And so when she moved to California, that's when she was just pretty much starting to do her thing.
Yeah.
And so from like '03 to like, I say '05, '06, we were pretty good in relationship as far as like talking. Like I would go visit her like every 3 months. We had a good relationship, but then there was a time it came that I just stopped. Like there's
Right.
like I probably didn't see her or talk to her for like months, just because I was just, in my eyes, I was too busy. I was too
Right.
busy to do any of that. So I just stayed in my lane and didn't really didn't really involve myself with my family, other than my older sister. That is when I moved in with her, and at the time I thought we were building a great relationship, but we were both just as screwed up as together as we were separated, because
Okay, got you.
we're both in the same boat as far as peddling in the wrong things and living wrong and all this extra stuff.
Okay. What was the lowest point that you got to where you finally realized I can't keep going down this road anymore?
It was I was 29 years old, and it was August 2009. Because I got clean in August 22nd, 2009, and it was the week prior to that. I was at my lowest. At the time, my girlfriend, or my wife now, left. She took the kids, went to live with her mom. Uh, she took them. She took her dog. I kept my dog, and at the time, I was actually now staying in the apartment that my grandma lived in. She was ready to decease. So I was staying in her apartment, and it was literally just paycheck to paycheck. Uh, at my lowest point, I was probably spending about $300 a week on cocaine, and at the time, still trying to pay my employees to do their job. It just got to the point where it was like robbing Peter to pay Paul,
Right.
and sometimes Paul's cousin to pay Paul, and it was. And the week before, like, I remember I was probably the soberest I ever was during that time, and I remember telling myself like, I can't do this. If I continue, if I'm still like this in my 30s, which was the following year, or which was a month from now, I
Yeah.
knew that I was never going to stop.
Right.
I never was. I was at my lowest. Like, I never saw my kids. My wife was like, I ain't moving back in until you get clean. And I was like, well, I ain't going to stop until you move back in. So it was just two opposite magnets hitting each other, and we just kept repelling each other. It was never going to end. I was at my lowest point. I was like, I can't do this. And that was the week before. And that night of August 21st, August 20th, 21st is when I had my last binge of cocaine.
Okay.
And man, I think I went through, in a 48-hour period, I did an 8 ball of cocaine, which was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot of cocaine. And that was that night. Leading up to that, that whole thought of me wanting to stop kept fading away, because the demon of addiction kept hindering it, kept blocking that thought. Every time that thought would come up, it was crazy because the way how you brought this up, it was crazy because every time I would think of that, wanting to stop that week up to my sobriety, every time I wanted to stop, in my eyes, something good would happen to where it allowed me to get more money to buy more coke, but also have more money to pay for other things.
Yeah.
So it was like the demon of addiction was blessing me to stay on his side, so that way I can keep doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
Up until I got to the point where I was laying on the floor and I knew I was gonna die, and I was like, I can't do this no more. I was like, I'm at my lowest point. I was like, God, I remember seeing you when I was a kid, and I need to see you now. And if you are who you say you are, I need you to completely take the desire away from me, because you're the only one. Like, I tried doing AA prior to do that, and AA meetings just weren't mine. AA meetings weren't for me. I just couldn't do it. And you did it, man. I woke up the next day. I had a little baby that weekend. Monday morning, my dad showed up at 6 in the morning and prayed. Haven't touched it ever since.
Nice. Nice. Once you made that change, how did that affect your creative abilities? Did you see a noticeable difference in being able to tap into something creatively that you weren't able to where you were doing drugs and alcohol?
Yes, I noticed it. I probably noticed it 90 days.
Okay.
I actually have, actually have a picture of my 90 day of being sober. There's a picture of me and my dad, and it was 3 months of me being sober. And I remember that because after that, I remember my mind being like truly sober. Like, there wasn't, like, my mind and my body was clean. Like, I knew there wasn't anything left in me as far as like chemicals and stuff.
Yeah.
And I literally felt like a little door of creativity open, because I remember I ended up getting a job after that, like after the 90 days, and it was a 68 Dodge Charger that this guy brought in, and he allowed me to do full creativity on it. He just wanted to keep the original color, and so I was able to really be mentally available for the repair, like to be there, like I was there to create this car to come back. There wasn't any substance to where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do more coke so that way I can get this car out or whatever and stuff. But yeah, it truly is true what they say. Being sober minded allows you to be more creative. It allows you to tap in to certain creativities that you couldn't before because you were being hindered by poison.
Yeah. For
And stuff.
sure. Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. When did you see the opportunity to start doing the creative stuff with the Pistons, creating the Mean Mugs brand?
That didn't come along until years, man. So I got clean and sober in '09. I left my dad's shop in 2011.
Okay.
My family, my wife came back. So I got clean in '09. Um, my wife moved back in with me in September of '09. And then we got married in November 21st. And then I stayed at my dad's shop the first 2 years because I knew I needed to be secluded from everybody. I had to do a complete cutoff separation from anything and everybody that was part of who was a part of me that was from the old life.
Yeah.
For 2 years, man, I secluded myself from everybody. I just was living at my shop, waking up, going to work, going to church, doing whatever I can to self healing myself, which was I just engulfed myself in meditation, with prayer and stuff. I did that, and then it got to the point to where my family was getting bigger, and work was getting a little slower. And then I was like, okay, do I put more time into my self-employment, or do I go ahead and cut the cord and go out there into the production line and see what I'm really made of and get more of a consistent earnings?
Yeah.
So I sat down with my dad and stuff, whatever. And, you know, I was like, okay, well, I made a decision to leave. So I left my dad in 2012 or 2011 when I left him. And so I went into an actual, it's called production body shop. So there's mom and pop shops, and then there's production body shops. So like your Caliber Collisions, your Crash Champions, like the Walmarts and like all the main big body shops. Those are like the production body shops for like high volume kind of people. So when I got into it, I was like, well, you know what? I'm just gonna now invoke my whole self to this into this career now. So I did that, and then it got to the point to where that was hurting me because I was working too much, and my work became my addiction, new addiction. I thought I just needed to work to try to make up for whatever I was missing.
Yeah.
So there was a few years that I missed with my kids when I was younger, and then it wasn't until I think 2015 is when I got involved in doing powerlifting.
Okay.
Because I come from a family of bad heart conditions and heart attacks and high blood pressure and all this stuff. And then I had a really good buddy of mine that was an actual auto body technician, but he was also a bodybuilder. I mean, he was a bodybuilder and a powerlifter, and he kind of like inspired me to get into it. So then I shifted my addiction to powerlifting because I realized powerlifting was a amazing delayed gratification. So in other
Right.
words, the more work I put into it, the more results I was going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Just like the more work I put into being sober, I was going to get back the actual staying sober. So I shifted whatever I was using in my work, like the urges of me working, I just put my urges into powerlifting.
Okay.
And so I just, I did my work, and then by lunchtime, I handled my urges and my feelings and my emotions in powerlifting. And then I did that up until 2020 when COVID hit, and then that was the birth of Mean Mug Pistons. Because when COVID hit, everything shut down.
Yeah.
All the gyms, there was no work coming in. The only people that had to go to work were the actual essential workers, which was me.
Yeah.
So I had to go to work and just sit there
Right.
and stuff. So during COVID, that is when the birth of Mean Mug Pistons came in because I was like every other worker, just sitting at my toolbox. Like I would come to work in my flip flops and keep my boots in my truck because we weren't doing any work.
Yeah.
And then when we did get work in, that was when I go change my shoes and whatever. But it got to the point that it was like, I don't know. I think I didn't touch a car for almost like maybe a month and a half, almost 2 months before we actually started getting some work in to where we can make something. But during that time, man, it was like I wasn't doing anything. And I was like, man, you know what? I'm not going to be stuck watching YouTube, doom scrolling on anything. I was like, and then that's when I was like, you know what? I always wanted to do some kind of like metal art. I
Yeah.
always wanted to do something because growing up, my dad made metal planners. Like I always made yard work, like yard art for the house.
Okay.
Like he would create different like sculptures and stuff for the yard, for the planners, or for his shop. Like he would go like to old antique shops and find like these old like tractor parts and stuff and make stuff out of them. And so he would make barbecue pits and here and there. And I wanted to do that, but I just could never put the time, add more time to what I was doing to do it
Right.
until COVID hit, and then I had all the time in the world. And so at the time, I had all the materials. I had all the metal. I had the welders. I had the plasma cutters. I had all the materials to my disposal. Grinders, grinding discs, everything I had in my shop.
Yep.
So I started making tiki heads out of
Okay.
pipes first, like stuff like this.
Yeah. Cool.
Then
Yep.
this was the very first artwork piece that I made during COVID. And in this is when I was like, okay, I think I'm loving something. I can do this. Because at the
Yeah.
time, nobody knew how long we were going to be out of work.
Right.
And, and then so there wasn't any gym. So I really couldn't push all my urges onto powerlifting as much because I couldn't go work out as much as I wanted to. So
Right.
then, and then I would use my work as to help me out. And then work stopped. And there's that old saying, idle hands are a devil's playground. And then the guys at work were, they were all drunk. They were all alcoholics. They all like drinks or whatever. So they were bringing beer and stuff to the work and hanging out. And, they were barbecuing at work and drinking. And, I didn't want to be a part of that. Slowly but surely, I started making some little metal art pieces. And then in between that, I started building my home garage so I could start doing powerlifting again. And then it got to the point to where I started making the Mean Mug Pistons because I got tired of making the tiki heads and I wanted to challenge myself for something else. And then I discovered this one guy on Instagram that makes them also, but he does a different style. I reached out to him. He gave me the bare minimum of what he used, which was totally fine because it
Yep.
was new. It was new to everybody. Nobody knew what it was, what was going
Sure.
on. I wouldn't say it was new, but it was new as far as in social media.
Yes.
And so I was like, bet. So I got a rhythm to where I was literally getting paid to make my artwork at work just to keep me busy. And then at lunchtime I would go home because I had my full garage and do my powerlifting. And so all of my creative cylinders were going. Like I was had the work going stuff with my Mean Mugs going to keep me busy. I was going home at lunchtime to work out, come back to work, do my artwork. And then it got to the my wife was like, why don't you post it on your social media, like your personal one, just to post it because you don't know somebody might want to buy it. And I was like,
Yeah.
you know, nobody's gonna buy this, not whatever. It's nowhere. It's not artwork for me to sell. It's just for me to keep me busy. It's not whatever. And so we're like, well, you never know. And so sure enough, man, I posted it, and who was my first one? I think one of my cousins was my first customer. I
Okay.
posted it, he paid for it, and I think I was selling them for like $120. Man, I was like, $120. I was like, that's crazy. Somebody's gonna pay that for my artwork. And then that was just the birth and the igniter, the spark for me to stay in it and get better. So every day I was just trying new things out, trying different things, getting better. And then I sold one, then I made another few, then I sold another one. And then I think it was like my eighth one that I was making. I had a custom order. My first custom order where somebody was like, can you do this with this? And it's not whatever. And I was like, I can. Then I made it, loved it. And then it was just like one sold, two sold, three, four, five. And then I remember my 21st one that I sold was to a real buddy and fifth one on Monday.
Nice. When you got into that mold of doing that thing creatively, and at this time you're sober as well, did spirituality or faith come back into the picture for you different than it was growing up?
Yes, it did. That was a huge benefactor in me doing this. The reason why is because um, when I got clean and sober, I had a recovery doctor, and I had to go when I actually got it was like a year and clean and sober. Little did I know that dog, my spiritual brother, spiritual
God was going to use him to help people with this.
Okay. So, I had a recovery pity, and God used him to help me spiritually, as far as to heal properly, help me heal. So, bleeding. So when I started the Mean Mug Pistons, little did I know that after I was started my Mean Mug Pistons, my dog died of cancer.
Okay.
And it was a huge blow to me, because I used him to help me when I came home from work after dealing with the world and everything, mentally, emotions and stuff.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I was kind of like in distraught. Like, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to handle all these, my thoughts and my process, because he helped me deal with them. And then I think I went to about maybe 3 days of mourning pretty bad. And then, I went to, I went back to work. I went back to work, and I remember I was working, and then that's when God told me, or showed me, that I gave you another talent to help you with to help you heal with your problems. I gave you a spiritual talent to help you.
Yeah.
So use your talent that I am giving you to help you in your life. And so I was like, dude, I went home that night. I remember I cried like a little baby,
Yeah.
because, at the time I was just really learning how to understand what being vulnerable was, and understanding that one of my greatest strength was being vulnerable, and learning how to be vulnerable in my life.
Yeah.
And it was just like everything finally just like came together. Why I was vulnerable, why I was going through this, why I started this whole Mean Mug process, you know, everything just finally just merged together, and I was like, okay, now whatever, because I was doing my artwork at night after I came back from work. So anytime I came in from after work or a day of work, I came in the garage, and then what I was feeling from the day, I put it all into my artwork. I put it all into the Mean Mug faces.
Yeah.
So that is why when you see my Mean Mug faces, they all have a similar look to them, but they all hold their own different emotions, because whatever emotions I was dealing with that day, I put them into faces.
Yeah.
So my Mean Mug faces are the emotions what I was feeling that day. So then God showed me, and I accepted the fact that, that even if social media across the board shut down, I am still able to do my artwork, because my artwork is what helps me deal with my emotions.
Yeah.
So
For
to
sure.
answer your question, the spiritual of it was huge, and has a huge benefactor in what I do with my Mean Mugs.
Yeah. And I think that's the message that all creatives need to be able to hear, is the fact that being creative in general, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's film, whether it's photography, like your sister, um, all of those things, being creative is the closest gifts that we've been given as humans to the original creator. We
Yeah,
we've been given the gift that is most like the creator himself. The ability to make things look different, change the way people looks at something, the way it makes people feel, the way people respond. It generates emotion. It allows you to be able to express your emotion. Those different aspects of being a creative are the things that are, in my opinion, are the most powerful. And also too, that clarity that you got of the fact that you didn't have to rely on something outside of yourself to help you cope anymore. It was all within you. That's what you need to start using to cope. And he gave you that message. And I thought that was a particularly ironic time in your life and a transition point as well, to where this happens to your dog, which has been your support, right? That was the thing
Yeah.
that was getting you through, supporting you emotionally and helping you get through the days. And then takes the dog away because it's ending his time, right, on earth. And then he makes you, brings it to your attention of, look, everything that you need for your support is right inside.
Yeah.
Which that takes me all the way back to when you were a kid as well. When you were having those difficult times of relatability or trying to be understood, you kind of moved into what you were doing artistically to express yourself. So even back then, you had this internal instinct to create, to just use what was inside of you to cope and get you through. And then fast forward to now, that's coming up again. And I
Yeah.
think that's a beautiful part of your story.
Yeah. It really is, man. Like I I absolutely love, like I've always loved artwork, just art in general, different kinds. But now that I can call myself an artist, like I am an artist in the fact that I create, and what I create uh is, it's, I don't know how to explain it, man. It's one of them experiences that you, whether you are an artist or you're going through it, like it's an amazing, it's an amazing experience. But what's amazing about it is the actual emotions that you feel when you're creating
Yeah.
those are the things that you can't describe to people that have never, that to won't allow themselves to create or give them time to understand those feelings. And I get it, it's difficult, like, and now times it's very difficult to try to allow yourself to add another time slot to the busy day and time that you have, to allow yourself to decompress enough to where you can create. Like it really is hard. Like I can testify it is hard. And
Yeah.
when I see these other artists on social media and I see what they create and I see what they're doing, like we all have a common we all have a common factor of, like, of what it's taking to create. Like I know the emotions and what you're going through, having to create that, or having to put that time aside to add it to your busy life to do it. And then the ones that are able to able to be full-time artists, I'm not there yet, but I've, in my time of when I've been off work here and there, like I was able to feel a glimpse of not going to work and continue to do my artwork and feel that I was a full-time artist. It's
Yeah.
an amazing, it is an amazing, like overwhelming, like uplifting feeling when you can just create and that's all you do. Like
Yeah.
that is an amazing feeling. Like I advocate for people in sobriety, try artwork, do anything possible what you can in any type of artwork, whether it's pottery, painting, sculpting, anything that involves to you to use your brain, use it. Because I can say my brain of the creativity is open full, and it allows me to be more acceptable of what else is out there for me to create. Like it gave me a more of a global eye, to be more sensitive to other people's feelings, to their artwork, to what they got going on in their lives. It really is, like I don't know how to explain it, but artwork has allowed me to do that. It allowed me to open a part of my mind and sensitivity to where I can see things globally and be like, you know what, I feel you, I understand you.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Beautifully said. I think that's a great place for us to be able to end today as well. One of the final things that I always try to leave the audience with at the end of one of these conversations is just the simple message of listen to your heart, but be kind to your mind.
Yeah.